Hey guys, I'm back. This is gonna be a hopefully quick tutorial of how to do these effects I am showing now on screen. Um, Nothing really complicated, just using a new node. You will be needing the newest version of Blender, which is version 3.3, the LTS version. This is an add-on called Blender Launcher. I will put this in the description below if you are interested. It helps me really to keep track of the newest versions of Blender and to download them easily. But besides that, let me show you the effect in the file. This is the head of the single head, not the body effect. If I simply scroll through the timeline, you'll see the head is revealed with these curves. I currently have the curve to mesh deactivated because it does lag my system out a little bit. It is intensive, but otherwise it's pretty fun, and I will be teaching you how to do this particular effect and so and so. So let's get started. All right, starting here in a new project, we are going to first import our head. So using once again the Sketchfab add-on, I'm going to type in head, and preferably I'm going to look for one that is not too high in the polygons. So let's use the simple male head. You can import really whatever as long as it's a contained mesh, not separated really, like say like this, where they're not really connected. The effect won't really work. It kind of glitches out. So it needs to be a single contained mesh. So let's use this. I think I need to fix the normals a little bit and remove the auto smooth. Nope, auto smooth is on. I don't know why that's there. Probably need to clean up merge by distance, and there we go. Yeah, whenever you import these meshes, usually that's the first thing you should be doing. There are some holes in the mesh, but that doesn't matter too much. And with that said, now we can get started on our effects. So open up geometry nodes, set that all up, create a new node network. I'm just going to rename it for simplicity, and I'm going to pin it using this little pin thing. That just means if I click off of it, it's going to stay, and I can just focus on it. But just remember to click off of it if you want it to change. It's a little bit tricky that way. So the nodes we will be needing are contained here in the mesh. They are path selection, not path selection, edge path to curves, I'm sorry. And the other one is down here, shortest edge path. These are the two main nodes we are going to need. Let's get some space. So the first thing we are going to do is also bring in some vector math nodes. And we are going to need two empties, our start point and our end point. So let's bring in an empty sphere, move this over here, Shift D, make a new one, call it one start and the other one end, and bring those two in. So now we're all set to go. Let's start by putting the edge path into the network, and you will see we disappear. That's because we have nothing yet plugged in. So what we're gonna need is we're gonna need to get our start and our end positions defined. So switch the math node, the vector math node, to distance, and bring in a position node. We're going to put location and position, and duplicate that since we are going to need that on the other one as well. From here, we get a float value, but what we are going to need is a Boolean value. So to get that, we need to use a compare node. Set this one to not equal and this one to equal since we want them to be opposites of each other. Put them both on A. And we need to actually have these on integer so that they're counting just solid numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. not these in-betweens that floats do. So with this not equal, we're going to have it be our start, and this equal will be our end. Now connect the next vertex index into the next vertex index, and you will see nothing happened at all. Why? No idea. I'm kidding. There we go. You need to, it's sort of a little bit weird. It kind of like needs to touch the geometry in order to like actually work. But you'll see scale doesn't really do anything, and I personally prefer if scale does like something. So what I do is if I create more space here, get a vector math, set this to divide, and divide this by the scale. Same thing down here. If we scale this up, actually I think I have these backwards. I always get these backwards. You'll see we're now able to influence based on the scale of our uh, empties as well. So this can help a bit. All right, next thing is we want to determine our paths. So right now you see that everything is kind of jumping all over the place. Maybe you want this, but really what I want is maybe the shortest path, and then I want to disturb that. So we are going to do that with the edge cost here. So let me move this up so I can keep things a little bit cleaner. And now we are going to use this edge cost here to affect that. So what I am going to do is bring in a edge vertices node, another vector math, set it to distance, get the distance of position 1 and distance position 2 of the edge vertices, and put that into the edge cost. And you'll see it will change these to the shortest path to reach the endpoint. And now, since this is a float value that we've put in, we can put a math node, set it to multiply, and input a texture noise into the bottom socket, and from there, so it's just a 4D, we can now have control over some randomization, and not just, while also having the shortest path selected. So that's a little trick I do. And that's essentially the node. Now all we would really need to do is add a, not that, a trim curve. Put this in, after the curve. If we let's play with the start, we'll see that it goes from, actually I think it got backwards. So this is actually our start, and this one's actually our end. So it starts, and then it ends, and then we can change the position sort of using these to like, it's a bit finicky, it's not exact, so you just gotta play with it to like see where you like it. In this case, this is fine. Another thing to do is always to reset your origins. This will probably mess up a couple things, but yeah, gotta remember to do that. Otherwise, you get all kinds of funky stuff that isn't supposed to happen. So there we go. That's a bit more like it. Sorry to say that so late, but yeah, always remember object set origin to geometry, and control A scale to apply the scale, so that way you get the an accurate representation of what's happening. So here we could play with the start curve, and from here you're pretty much finished with the effect. You can just hit a curve to mesh, drop it in, put a curve primitive, curve circle. I'm going to drop this down to 8 with a radius of 0.01. Plug that in, and you'll see we already have our lines. If we mess around with it, yeah, that works. But we want to kind of have a bit more control. So for now, I'm going to mute this and move this to the side. We're also going to move this here. And in here, we are going to mess with it more. So let's set the spline type to Bezier, and then set the handle type, not the handle position, set the handle type to auto, and you'll see it'll make them all curvy, which is pretty cool. Like this is the effect that I want. It's what I did with the other head, kind of like a little bit more organic. And now I want to sort of cause a little bit of chaos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a set position node. In the set position node, I'm going to bring in a normal, a vector math set to scale, plug in the normal into the vector into the offset, and then I'm going to attach a multiply node onto the scale. From here, I'm going to attach a noise texture onto the first socket, switch this to 4D, and now if I mess here, I can change the scale and I can get them to wiggle a little bit. And that will be, you could set this into a input scene time frames, and then do a utilities math, set this to divide, and then divide this by 25, and now it will animate. We can set this to 80 and it'll slow down. You'll see this kind of gives it a more organic look, like if it's something that's alive, sort of. If we increase the radius, we get a little bit more chaos. Put the roughness, and there. I like that, so I'm going to keep that. Next thing we are going to do is actually in between these two nodes, and this is a little bit more intensive, so you don't have to do this. We're going to resample the curve, and you're going to see it sort of simplifies it. This effect looks cool too, but if we up the resolution to 30, we kind of get like, if I quickly mute, a more like spider webby effect. I could also continuously increase until we get what we had before, but I want to have a sort of an in-between, like that. Now this effect is kind of intensive, as when you add the curve to mesh, it is going to lag like you don't know. So I like to work with this muted, and then when I'm going to render, I activate it. You could do the Boolean thing I've done before. Just to quickly show you, if I add a switch node, and then actually not here, a switch node right here, set this one to false. Let me quickly mute that and this. And then if I unmute that and that, so I can show you what I'm talking about, you'll see, okay, we could switch between that. Let's plug this into false. If we switch that into that, and then we duplicate our switch node, set this to Boolean, and bring in an is viewport node, switch this into the, put this into the switch, and then I think if I have this on, I want it to stay on. So let's test this. So let's see what happens. Yeah, okay, so now this has to be in true. So now if I untick that, it switches on. If I have it ticked on, it will do the is viewport, which means as long as I'm in the viewport, it's going to appear in this way. But when I hit render, it will replace it for the lines for this. So this is an easy way to just to create a it's sort of I don't know what it's called, just to not have your scene lag out. So now we can reactivate that, and we can also, if we duplicate this, we could bring this into the actual network so that into the actual modifier so we can pick it from there and not have to travel all the way here to see it. So now carrying on, we have done our animation onto the curves, and now we want to animate this growth effect. We can bring this into the group input here, animate it from there, but then you would have to it wouldn't be as controllable, and you would have to, especially if you want to do like curve adjustments, it would be kind of tricky. You would have to open another window, adjust the keyframes. So instead, I'm going to show you how to do an easier method. Well, I say easier, but it's a little bit more complicated, but it will result in a lot more control. So we are going to bring in a third empty. So let's bring in a cube, call this control. Bring this into here. We can set it to relative. Doesn't really matter. So we want this empty to control the start position based on off of its location. So let's start that. So what we are going to need is an input position and some vector math. We're going to set this to subtract, and we are going to put the location and the position. From here, we are going to also take the vector and divide it by the scale. And from there, we are going to now take a separate a combined XYZ so that it only affects the x-axis. And from there, we can put it into a float to curve, which this will plug into the, let me make some space up here. This will be plugged into the start. And now if we move our thing, you'll see nothing happens. Alright, so after a bit of troubleshooting, I figured out I'm a dumbass, and it was actually working. I just had to move the cube a little bit further. I've also set this to add because I wanted it to be from right to left. Oh, yeah, so that yeah, so it makes more sense visually. Uh, I set my keyframes for the cube to move from right to left. Me facing the screen. So that's simple. It's nothing really complicated. I think I've explained it in my other tutorial too, so if you want to check it out, link below or somewhere. Um, so you see, but this is very linear, and why do we do this entire setup? For this, well, it's for this float curve node. So with this curve node, we can now edit how the animation's done. You'll see if I change it from up here, it'll go fast. If I switch it down here, it'll be a little bit slower. And then if I just mess around and do this, it'll create an interesting animation. And then we can continue editing this as much as we like, just looking at the animation as it loops. So yeah, just play around with it depending on the effect that you want. And yeah, in this case, I'm going to move this back up here, move this down here, because I just want a simple growth animation with a little bit of speed. Okay, and now material. In this case, all I'm going to do is assign a glowing material. So I'm going to select my head, add a new material. It's going to be glow. I know how to spell, I swear. Set it to that. It's just going to be I guess a red. I don't know. And now we're going to go to material, set material, and in our material output here, we're going to pick glow. And if I switch to, I'm going to switch to Eevee. If I switch to rendered, we're not going to see anything because we need to deselect our things. Let's also set the world color to black so we can see it a bit clearer. And now we can adjust our color. So let's actually do a little bit of a more orange tinge. Go into the Eevee settings and put in blue. Why did it go to yellow? Or green, sorry. I know my colors, I swear. And yeah, if we mess with the bloom a little bit in the Eevee, we can get a little bit of a nice glow. And there we go. This is gonna lag like crazy, but you'll see in an effect. It's pretty cool. And now, of course, if we let's mute this again so that we can just see our curves, because I'm going to activate the set position. We can see we also have wiggle movements in our lightning, or whatever the heck this is. So that is how you make a simple growth sort of animation thing. And of course, you could also add more onto this. You can make these into vines. You can make them into a sludge thing. And you could run multiple things on this. But this is just a simple basic example of what this node can do, edge path to curves, mixed in with the shortest edge paths just to like mess around, have fun. Can be good graphic stuff. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. If you make anything cool, make sure to show me. I enjoy watching those. And if you have any questions, I probably don't know, but you could ask anyways. Peace.